All right, welcome everyone to the next NZGDA webinar. This is the February webinar, and today we're joined with Simon Smith, who's the Senior Game Scout at Team 17. He's joining us all the way from Manchester in the UK. We're really grateful to have him here, and Team 17 are doing some amazing work. Recent news is last year they signed with Balancing Monkey Games to put their game Before We Leave on the Steam store and signed a publishing deal with them, which is very exciting. I've got a bunch of great questions to ask about publishing from some indie devs in New Zealand, which I'm excited to get into. I won't say that there's a Q&A at the end because I think the nature of this conversation, I'll be able to take questions as we go. So if you do have any questions that come up, just put them in the chat and I'll ask them as they come up organically. We're also going to have an opening and closing karakia from our Executive Director, Leanne Ross. And also this recording is going to be put onto the NZGDA YouTube channel. And in the description of the YouTube, there's all the links to Simon's Twitter, the Team 17 publishing sign-up form, and any other links that we talk about today. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Leanne to give us a karakia before we get started.
Well, no mai haere mai, Simon. Welcome to New Zealand from closer to the part of the world that I grew up in. A karakia is tikanga. It's a Māori cultural practice. It's how we open and welcome people to meetings and events where we kind of want to stop what we were thinking about and doing before, come together for this moment and sort of be together for this purpose. So don't worry that you won't understand what I'm saying. It's all about the spirit behind it. So whakatakateo ki te uru, whakatakateo ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atukura, he tio, he huka, he houhu, ti he moriora. Welcome, and I'm really excited to hear more about the publishing side of our industry and what you do.
Thanks for that, Liam.
Awesome. So the first question I have, and we're going to hop around all sorts of different areas, but the first question I have just to kick this conversation off is, at what point in the development of a game should an indie dev think about starting to reach out to publishers? At what point do you think is the best chance that they would have of signing it in the development process? What are your thoughts on when a good time is?
I think it's always a good idea to start building relationships as early as possible. So even if you don't have anything to pitch to someone, you can chat to them. You can, come on calls like this, I suppose, and just become aware of people, even if you're not speaking to them directly. You can, go to events if possible. Not expecting everyone to come from New Zealand to the UK, but you could maybe get to GDC. That's the one where everyone's going to be. Gamescom is the big one in Europe. Develop in the UK is really, really good. That's in July. It was in October last year because of the pandemic. We do get people coming over from all around the world for these ones, and hopefully we'll get to come to New Zealand to events and to things like PAX in Australia and things that are happening down there. It's all a little bit up in the air at the moment. So I would start building relationships whenever, really. Even if you just I was at Develop in October and there was, I think, 15, maybe just 15 of us, me and a load of indie devs went round, just went for pizza and, just chatting to people. And they were from all over, and it's just nice to meet people and they can ask you questions and get an idea of, anything that they want to ask. I suppose a more intimate version of this, really, Carl.
Yeah.
Over a beer, but yeah, I would say that's really good. I would think that was a good bit of advice. And also, I think some developers spend too much effort on stuff before they need to. If that makes any sense. So I think there's a level of a demo or a presentation that you can do. But then if you've basically made 50% of your game and then you start looking for a publisher, and then the publishers are all telling you, I don't think that was a very good idea for a game, or it won't sell, or blah, 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 then you've kind of wasted a lot of time. I know one developer that keeps sending me really, really nice demos every time he has an idea. I spend loads of effort on a demo, and I keep saying, hey, you know, maybe just like send us a paper pitch and we'll give you some feedback. So, you know, you don't have to have a massive playable demo. It is nice, but also think about, you know, building relationships with people, and maybe just like just sending us a you know, like a 10-20 page pitch document. What do you think of this idea? And we'll always, you know, do our best to try and give you some feedback.
Yeah, so obviously we're talking about publishing in a broader term, but different publishers focus on different platforms, different genres. But just to give some value, I'd love to hear a bit more about what's Team 17's process of their pitch process. You know, like what does that look like from the moment they receive a message from someone to someone actually getting signed?
I should really have a diagram ready for this, shouldn't I? It'd be a lot easier. But, we do have a document. We do have a document with information that we share with people, but we just don't stick it on the website. We share it when we have conversations with people. I think the first thing to preface it with, Carl, for Team 17 specifically, is just so people know what we're up to at the moment. So Team 17's grown to be a $2 billion company, $2 billion US dollar. I didn't translate that into New Zealand dollars, sorry. But $2 billion US dollars sounds quite a lot, doesn't it? So we've grown to be a big company, and we are expanding and doing different things. So you'll see that Debbie, the chief executive, has turned it into Team 17 Group. So we've got Team 17 Games label, which I'm part of, and I'm the Game Scout for, one of the Game Scouts for. So that's the biggest part of the company. And then Debbie has turned it into a group. So she's been and bought some other companies. So she bought a company in Ireland called Story Toys that makes, it's basically the #1 educational edutainment app maker for kids. They do things with Lego and Duplo and Captain America and all the Disney stuff. So that's really awesome. Really nice business that she bought there, and really sort of helping kids learn through gameplay, which is nice. She bought Astra, I can't pronounce it probably, Astragon in Dusseldorf in Germany, who a simulation game company that was only announced in January. They make bus simulator and police simulator, which is just like, police simulators, bus simulator is pretty successful and no one's heard of it unless you're into simulator games. And police simulator is like the new, like, it's going amazing. It's only in early access. It's already got over 5,000 Steam reviews. It's in early access. So if you know anything about Steam reviews, you can see that's quite successful. Another Antipodean link, a year ago, almost to this month, Team 17 bought Golf With Your Friends, the game, the brand of the game and everything. So they were publishing it. That was made in Australia. Actually, we keep buying Australian things because we also just bought Hell Let Loose, which was an Australian guy that I think moved to the UK, and like some of the teams in Australia and some Team 17, and so it's a mix of different people. So yeah, so we do keep buying Australian things. Maybe we need to buy New Zealand things now. So we're expanding, and so we're not just about indie games anymore.
Yeah.
So we still want to be, you know, seen as the friend of the indies, and we're an indie company really, even though we're, you know, publicly owned now. We've still got that indie spirit, and that's where the companies come from. But we are doing much bigger games as well now. So you'll see recently Gord was announced. Gord is a multi-million-dollar project, being made in Poland by some of the people that work for, he was one of the producers of the Witcher series, you know, work for CD Projekt Red and Leducq team, and those like some of the best people from those awesome Polish developers got together. So that's and we'll be announcing other big games as well. So we're looking for big games and smaller indie games as well.
Yeah,
so,
I think
that wasn't an answer to your question, Carl. Sorry, but I just wanted to.
No, that's right. So my takeaway from that though is that people seeking publishers should really learn about the publishers' journeys, because like you're saying, you know, 10 years ago, Team 17 was probably a lot more indie focused, and now they're, you know, starting to grow, and every publisher is going through their own journey of where they see the industry going. So that is really important for if you feel like your game fits in the future vision of where this publisher would want to go. That's probably a great bet to reach reach out to.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before the call, like a website to send in your pitch. Could you explain a bit about that, like the actual transaction of how someone sends in a demo or a pitch deck?
Yeah, so I just dropped the link in the chat if everyone can see the chat. I don't go there now because it's just a form. It's just a web form, but that's the web form. If you just want to submit a game directly to Team 17, that's the easiest way to do it. You know, sometimes people will email me and do stuff as well, or tweet at me and stuff like that, which is fine. If you send me stuff for your game, all I have to do is type it into that website, basically. So if I just get you to do it, it's faster. And it goes, you know, and if you just send me a load of stuff, then I've got to type it all in and make sure it's correct and all that kind of stuff. If we get the developers to do it when you just want to send us an initial pitch, then at least if you do it on the website, we know that everything's correct and it's got the list of everything that we want off you as well. So if you answer all those questions, that's a really good start point for us. So it's things like, it asks what platforms, how long the game's been in development, your contact details, what sort of budget, you know, all these sort of things. I should have a look. I've not looked at it for ages. And it's got, you know, little information about Team 17 and stuff like that. But it's basically a nice web form that asks the very basic information and a bit more than the basic information. So we've got a start point there. So what you're wanting to know is then what happens afterwards. So yeah. So you send your game in to teams. So I've got fireworks going off outside. It's really noisy.
That's all good. It's only a slight hum in the background. Yeah.
But there's no reason. It's just I live in an area where idiots like setting off fireworks. Yeah. So you've submitted your game into the Team 17 website. You filled in the form. You've done all the information, and then it instantly gets sent to everyone on the team, on the game scouting team, and we have it. It just comes up in an email folder. We look through them, and then we have all these games that got submitted every week, and one of the junior game scouts goes through to filter out all the rubbish. And by rubbish, I mean emails like people saying, "Make Overcooked 3." You know, it's like, yeah, okay, we might have thought of that, you know, or I don't know. Add beavers to Hell Let Loose. You know, we get all sorts of crazy emails that come through that submission process. So he has to unfortunately go through however many we get per week, filter out all the ones that don't make any sense, and then we get X amount per week that we look through, and we have at least one meeting per week where the team looks through all those submissions, and we go through the submissions. We look, you know, any presentation materials that they sent through. So hopefully if they've got something that they've actually made, then they've got a video of that. Videos are super important. And I'll, as an aside there, if you're trying to get the attention of a publisher, don't like do a 5-minute long video where 4 minutes of it is story and 1 minute of it is gameplay at the end. I want to see the game in the first 30 seconds of the video, if not less. Yeah. Think of it like a film trailer, or you know, that thing they've started doing with modern film trailers where they put a little clip of stuff of action at
a little trailer before the trailer.
Yeah, like a trailer for the trailer. But that's what you know, we've got, you know, a lot of games to look through every week. But the worst ones are the ones where we get a story trailer. We have to keep skipping through the trailer to find the gameplay because we're like that. We need to see the gameplay. Yeah. Is that? And I mean, that's a good thing for me because we make games. It's about gameplay. Everything's about gameplay. You know, it's nice for something to have a story if it's a story-based game, but we're not going to see your entire story in a short video. Totally. But the games are about gameplay. You know, if it's all about the story, then it's a film. It's not or a TV show. It's not. It's not a thing. So yeah, so that's a good tip. Forefront the game in anything that you do. Forefront the gameplay in anything that you do. If you do a presentation, you know, put gameplay in the presentation. Put animated GIFs. Put links to videos. All this kind of stuff. Screens. So yeah, so we look at it all on the team, and then if we like what we see, then one of the team reaches out to whoever sent it in as quickly as possible. We do try and act on stuff as quickly as possible. Yeah, it gets sent out. An email sent out or tweet or whatever way we carry a pigeon, whatever way we've got of contacting you, because not everyone puts that. This is another point. Please have an email address because it's email address in. The amount of developers that don't have a way of contacting them on the website. So we see cool games, we look on Twitter, we look on wherever, and then we go and try and find the website, and they don't have any way of contacting them.
Make sure you have an email.
Yeah. There's like one guy, the only way I could contact him was to send him he got this beautiful looking game that he wanted to sell to people at some point in the future. The only way I could contact him was a DM on Instagram, which he didn't reply to. So
yeah, that's a shame.
Have an email, even if it's a generic email. That's a really good tip. So it gets to the point where we email, or hopefully the person that sends it in, and they get back to us, and then we do an initial. The junior game scout does an initial call to ask them about the game and see where it's going. Because sometimes people, like, they've either sent it in or we've approached them, and like it's not going anywhere, or like, oh yeah, it's going to be ready in 3 years, or like, yeah, maybe. So we have a limited amount of time for myself and my colleagues as the senior game scouts. So we just have to divide the work up a little bit. Like, I still reach out to people as well, but it's the junior people sort of get them, the communication started. And then if it looks like it's an interesting proposition, then they bring me or one of my colleagues in as well. And we talk to the developer, and we have another call where we talk and ask, I've got like a list of questions that I have to ask them. I've got a spreadsheet that I need to fill in with questions like that's more deeper questions than you would fill in the submission form.
Yeah, awesome. So kind of moving over to the moment moment a publisher meets a developer that they really like each other, they want to work with each other. Could you explain a bit about things like revenue share, recuperation, like recuperating the funding, and any other sort of like agreements that get made? This is just on like a broader level, not Team 17 specific, just so that people can think, like, understand what they're not giving up, but like the portion of the studio or the game that they're sharing with a publisher. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you've already mentioned, it's going to be different for every game and every deal. The first thing you need to think about is the IP rights, the intellectual property, and everyone goes on about this all the time, but that really is your crown jewels as a developer. That's what you own. That's what you've created. So, depending on the publisher that you work with, they may or may not assume that they're going to take over the IP as part of the deal. Team 17 don't take over the IP automatically. We might buy it off you later. So we'll have something in the contract that says we have the opportunity to buy it off you, or you have to give us first refusal to buy it off you, sort of thing, which is fairly reasonable. But you don't have to sell it to us. But we have the opportunity to make you the best offer. And I think most publishers these days, I've not really dealt with all of them recently, but certainly the indie publishers and the newer publishers. Team 17 is kind of new because it's only been publishing other people's games for less than 10 years. It's kind of a new publisher, even though it's been self-publishing for 30 years. So IP really, really important. And then, I mean, deal terms are again, they're just different for every single thing. I mean, we generally start at 50-50 and negotiate from there. So you wouldn't get any less than 50% from Team 17. Was that? Yeah. I'm trying to explain myself correctly, but it's a good way of describing it. But it's different for every single deal and every single publisher.
Totally. So other than IP rights and then I guess like revenue, are there any other valuable or like KPIs of monitoring, like the how it's split up amongst a publisher and a developer, like sequels and things like that? I'm just trying to think of any other corners that might be interesting.
I mean, you need to do a deal that's interesting depending on the game, really, don't you? And how much the publisher wants to sign it, and how much the developer needs to get it signed, and how much help they need. So, I mean, if you come in and say the budget of the game is $2 million, but I only need 500,000 from the publisher, then that means the percentage is going to go in your favor. But if you come and say it's $2 million, but I need all of that $2 million, then I mean, you're kind of getting a loan from the publisher, so then the percentage goes in the publisher's favor.
Yeah, that makes sense. Even that, I think, can be really valuable for indie devs to be thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you think about, you know, is it better to do a deal with a publisher for that money, or is it better to get a bank loan? Because it might be, you know, for an extra couple of percentage. So if you get, you know, like finance wise, are you going to be better? You know, do you have the confidence that your game's going to make so much money that an extra percentage in your favor is going to make you a lot more money? And will that money pay off your bank loan? You kind of have to do financial calculations to work that out, where you want to get the money from. I mean, there's other things as well. So, you know, you can get, you know, a lot of places get government funding as well. I mean, I know a lot about the UK just because I'm in the UK, but we have games tax relief. So I know Australia. I don't know the situation in New Zealand at the moment. I know Australia are having some changes at the moment.
Yeah, it's in discussion. The tax offsets in Australia have definitely added pressure to the government here. So hopefully we'll get some good news soon.
So you kind of have to work out where the best, you know, like if you can get a loan for this amount of money, does that mean you get a better deal with the publisher? And really, you know, we want a good deal for us and for you. So as a publisher, I always find it a little bit different because I know that Team 7, because having worked there for just over a year now, I know that Team 17 won't screw you over based on personal experience, because we don't, because I've done the deals. But I'm not sure that every publisher is going to be that nice to you.
So I really appreciate the honesty, and like that example that you just gave about, you know, if you need $2 million, how do you get that? Those are some really good like thoughts that an indie dev should be having. So on that thread of bank loans versus publisher, and this is again just talking more broadly, not Team 17 itself, but what value can a publisher provide that would make someone consider a publisher over a bank loan? Just from your experience or from your knowledge.
I mean, that's very specifically talking about financing. Because you started off saying what are the advantages that a publisher can bring to it, but then you ended that sentence over a bank loan. That's specifically so there's kind of two different things there. One is like the finance thing, and which I've already spoken a little bit about, that, you know, if you get a bank loan, maybe you can get an extra percentage on your deal with the publisher, and it just means you earn more money in the long run. I mean, again, your game, but the risk there is more on your side, because if you're getting a bank loan, you've got to pay that bank loan off. If you do a deal with the publisher,
you're both
where they're putting all the money in, then they're assuming the risk. And you don't necessarily, it's not like it's like if it's a bank loan, you owe the bank that money. If you do the deal with you don't really owe the publisher that money. Does that make sense? They're taking on that risk, and they're agreeing to take on that risk, but the publisher wants a higher percentage in their favor in order to take on that risk.
So that's a really good example. That's a really good point to make. Like that, bank loans and publishers aren't like the publisher isn't just like a game bank loan. So not talking about the financial side, I know there's a lot of value publishers can provide from localization, marketing, QA, helping like publish on stores. On those, like, is there anything else that you feel like publishers can provide that indie devs might not be thinking about?
So I can genuinely speak about this from personal experience, because I published my own game in 2018 called Word Hunters, and it was actually funded by Sony, by PlayStation. So it was they had the PlayLink system where you use your mobile phone as a game controller and used it to connect up to the PlayStation 4 and, well, actually 5 as well now, and use it as a game controller. And I made a game called Word Hunters, which is it's better than Wordle. So if you like word games, get Word Hunters. It's my new thing. I say, buy Word Hunters. But I basically did everything. I mean, it was financed by Sony, but it was self-published. So Sony basically put up the money because they wanted some new games for this PlayLink system. and they did it with a few people, but I ended up publishing it myself. And I know I'm going to mildly swear, but self-publishing is a massive pain in the arse because you have to do everything. I mean, this is why publishers exist, because doing that stuff is difficult, and not just so people think about publishers as doing X things, but they do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, all these things that people don't necessarily understand, especially if they're not used to getting involved with publishing, or maybe they're new to the games industry or something like that. So you can kind of think, oh yeah, okay, a publisher can give me money, or loan me money, because it's kind of a loan, because you have to, they don't just give you money to make the game, you have to pay them back. It's just in a different circumstances and situation to if it's a bank loan. They can do marketing, they can do help me with QA and all this kind of stuff, that help me with localization, as you already mentioned. But there's so many other things that you don't think about until you do it yourself. So I spent so long creating the store thumbnails for the PlayStation Store, and the PlayStation, and it has changed and got a bit better over the last 3 or 4 years, but it was an absolute nightmare. So I had to do thumbnails for every language, for every country, and I had to load them to this website and blah, 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 blah. And it was just, I was up to like 4 a.m. doing this stuff for the PlayStation Store. And I was doing that, and I was designing and producing the game at the same time, and doing all the finance and paying people and all this kind of stuff. And it was just like, it was so much effort. I vowed never to self-publish a game ever again, just because it was so much effort. So, obviously I work for a publisher, so I'm going to say, hey, work with a publisher. But my actual personal experience was it was exhausting, and there's just so much crap you've got to do to get. And that was one
platform.
One platform,
yeah.
That was just PlayStation. I had to do an app on the App Store and the Google Play Store as well, and but they were the systems for that, while still a nightmare, were a lot less of a nightmare than the PlayStation Store at that time, but it has improved since then. And so the other thing that I always want to get across is, this is my big thing that I want to get across to people. There's one massive thing that a publisher can help you with that you can't outsource. So you as an indie dev, you can outsource marketing, because you can hire a marketing agency. They may be good or they may not be good. Depends who it is. You can outsource QA, you can outsource localization. The one thing that you absolutely cannot outsource is sales. And a good publisher like Team 17 has an amazing sales department. And sales, you just can't outsource that. Who are you going to outsource that to? Do you know any sales company that you could do that? And people don't think about that, because it's not something. So it's not something that people are aware of. So sales is, and I will talk about Team 17 a bit, because that's my specific knowledge. But sales is getting your game into 30 PC stores around the world, because people think of the Steam store as being, indie devs, Steam store, but there's GOG, there's Epic Store, just the big ones, but then there's some like random PC online store in Malaysia that you've never heard of. But
Green Man Gaming is another one.
That's another one. That's one of the bigger ones. But so just my hypothetical example of this random store in Malaysia that you've never heard of. But they might sell 5,000 copies of your game over the next 3 years, and 5,000 copies is a decent amount. But you don't even know of their existence. And if you do know of their existence, you've got to do a deal with all these 30 different PC stores all around the world. And that's just digital, then you've got retail that you've got to deal with as well. You're going to put your game in a box, you're going to get someone to make it. But not just that physical stuff, actually selling into these stores all around the world. Are you going to do a deal with Game Pass? Are you going to do a deal with Amazon Luna? Are you going to do a deal with PlayStation Plus? And if you do you have the experience to be able to get the most value out of that deal? So if you remember a few months back, someone leaked some Epic Store deal terms. And like the famous one was like Fez, amazing game. Got like $50,000. And people were like, how the hell did that amazing game only get $50,000? I mean, there's obviously reasons for that. Like, it was years after it came out, etc., etc., etc. But you've seen you have no idea what a good deal is for your game. But we, people with a sales team have like our sales team is like absolutely amazing and knows exactly what buttons to press to eke the most amount of money out of these people for you. So like we can literally get more money for deals than you probably ever could.
Mm-hmm. It's really
I'm quite passionate about sales because people don't really know of its existence or think
I love
about
that. That's exactly the kind of comment I wanted to get from you on this Fireside chat, because up until now, I personally hadn't thought about sales in that way. And that definitely
you can't outsource it.
Totally. Yeah, which is really, really great advice. I almost feel like even the most popular game eventually gets to a point where they need a publisher. Like even if they manage to self-publish on the first platform themselves, it's a natural progression just to scale. They need people with that experience.
Yeah, I mean, well, you see, I mean, you know, Balancing Monkey is a great example of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
Balancing Monkey. I don't know if anyone's on the call. Hello, if you are, Sam or anyone. But they might be sneaking onto the call. Don't say anything, I'll get nervous. You know, Balancing Monkey, you know, I don't, you know, the ins and outs of everything because, you know, a separate team deals with them and, you know, once with the sales and everything. But Balancing Monkey had their game out on Epic Store. And basically I saw the game and I saw that it was on Epic Store and it was an awesome game and I played it. I was like, oh, this game's not even out on Steam yet. So I was like, well, we can really help them with Steam because we are basically really good at selling games on Steam. And so I approached them and said, hey, you know, you're already out on Epic. And it was that they had an exclusive deal, I think, for X amount of time. And it's like, are you coming to Steam? And they were like, oh, yeah, we're coming to Steam. And it just happened to be a massive coincidence that the launch date was the same date that was at the Team 17 publisher sale.
Yeah, yeah.
So everyone's like, wow, that's fantastic news. Because, you know, you go into a sale, it's great news anyway. But if we can launch a brand new game on the day it was going to come out anyway, into a sale and get all those eyeballs from, you know, from that sale, Team 17, the big thing. Also, we basically launched a new game. I think it was I think it was a fantastic opportunity. And then we've also, you know, it's out on Game Pass as well. Mm-hmm. So we did a Game Pass deal. We helped them convert it to Xboxes, and got a Game Pass deal that was basically non-existent until we helped them, and we helped them get that funded and get that done by a partner company as well. Yeah. So, you know, there's an actual, you know, example there. You need to speak to them if they're happy about it. Yeah, hopefully they are. I think they're happy.
Right. Yeah, I think they're really happy.
Doing all right. I think they're doing all right. They're really nice people.
So that's another case that when I heard about Team 17 signing a publishing deal to launch before we leave onto Steam, I almost didn't consider that as being a thing like that. Yeah. After a game has already launched, that you'd get an exclusive publisher deal for a specific platform. And I think that's really great advice for other, you know, developers out there. Maybe they have released a game on one platform and they are thinking about moving to another platform, because that, you know, you can show proof of concept, you can show like building a community at that point. And publishers are interested, which is cool to see, to help launch on different platforms.
I do think you have to kind of think, if you've got that game. So one caveat there, Carl, is if it's not done very well, if it's not been very successful, we can't really make it a success after the fact. Mm-hmm. So if you come to me and say, hey, and this happens all the time, yeah. So people don't sign with a publisher, and then they come and say, hey, my game's got 15 Steam reviews in the first 6 months, help. And we're like, sorry, it's too late. Yeah. And we just, you know, we're a business. It's like, we can't magically, you know, you've lost your chance there, really.
Yeah. On that note of 15 Steam reviews, do you have any like KPIs for what is considered a success, for how many sales, or like, I suppose it definitely differs, especially talking about free to play as well. But do you have any like triggers that if someone says, hey, I've got a game and it's sold 20,000 units, like, do you perk up? Is there any like bar to entry to your thoughts that you have?
I think if it's a game that exists and you want us to help you take it to other platforms or something like that, then, you know, you're going to be looking the hundreds minimum, if not over 1,000, to get a publisher's attention. I think, again, I work for quite a big publisher, so we have different standards possibly to other people, or it's not so much standards as overheads and stuff like that. So we have to be kind of operating in a space where they sort of fit with the Team 17 business and also the other games that we publish as well. So we've got to have a quality level and a sales potential level as well that might be different to some other publishers that are smaller and got different overheads.
Yeah. All right. Well, just kind of continuing on the conversation, I'm just trying to get as much value as possible. So when talking about pitch decks, I'm sure you've seen a couple hundred, maybe a couple 100,000 in your time. What are some rapid fire pieces of advice that you have for people in their pitch decks?
Well, two things. One, I've probably written more than a couple of hundred in my time. I was just going to go, if you go on my Twitter, I've got a pinned tweet thread of game pitch tips.
Awesome.
I occasionally add to. I'm just trying to find. I was going to try and find a link, but
I'll find it. I'll do some detective work and I'll put it in the description.
There you go.
Nice.
So there's I'm looking at that because it reminds me of my tips as well. So the main thing is visuals. People want visuals. So even if you don't have a promo video or a video of the game running, we at least want to see some concept art. So nothing will sell with text only. Just, maybe if you pitch it to me in a lift at a conference or something, then yeah, maybe you can tell me about it and get excited about it. That's great. But we need to see visuals. That's really important. The other really important thing when you're doing a pitch document is, and this is just a general thing, not just in a pitch document, but don't forget to tell the publisher what you want. And so many people forget to say what they want or what they need. So if you need $2 million, tell me straight away that you need $2 million.
Yeah.
If you need help with porting, tell me that you need help with porting. If you have a game, just tell me what the situation is, tell me what you need. And if you're going to do a pitch document, put that in the pitch document.
Yeah.
And that is quite important. I did actually say this to someone today, or pointed this out to them, because it kind of if you put that information, you might think, oh, the pitch document is just my beautiful game that I'm selling and this is the description of the game, but I want a document that I can send around to other people. So I want a document that I can send to the sales department, and the sales department want to know what your projected sales are, what the budget of the game is and stuff like that. And if I have to write that in an email, it's just it's better to all be in the same pitch document together. It doesn't have to be absolutely loads of detail, but at least tell me, the basics. I need to know what the production schedule is, what the background of the team is, what's your pedigree, how much money you want, or not, as the case may be, and what you actually need. And that can just be one slide in a PowerPoint or a Word document or whatever. But yeah, so many people forget to tell us what they actually need, and then we have to go back and ask them, and it's exhausting. Yeah, there's loads of tips. I think I'm up to, as I'd loads, building my own myself up a bit. There's at least 10.
That's awesome. No, Twitter's great for stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a few tips on there, and I'll keep adding to it when I think of them. I will probably think of something at the end of this call and add it to it.
All right, so we've probably got 5 more minutes, and I'll try just get through other big chunks that I wanted to address. But already I appreciate everything that you've spoken about. I've learned a lot on this call. So one question I had was, if a person approaches you wanting to pitch a game, would it be valuable if they thought about themselves as a studio in that discussion, in terms of the studio infrastructure? Does that play a part in the decision process with Team 17? Because I feel like games nowadays need to be framed as a studio because of the nature of games being long running. But I'd love to know your thoughts from a publisher's perspective.
I'm gonna say no straight away.
Okay, tell me why.
I'll give you an example. Well, again, this is speaking from Team 17 perspective, but we can help you make your games to a certain extent. So you might make the PC version, but we have got over 200 developers in house that could potentially help you make the console versions, for example. So we have people working on Overcooked with Ghost Town Games, we have people working on Hell Let Loose. We now own Hell Let Loose, so that's a little bit different. But it is nice to have a team of people, and we've got all these people. We've got the programming director, we've got the art director, we blah blah blah. We've got all that, and that is nice. But at the end of the day, it's a game that's a good game that we can make money out of, and also be proud of as well, which is important. We always say we're a commercial company, we're a public limited company now, so we're there to make money. And Team 17 has always been that, even before it was a public company. It's always been a money making company. That's there. We're not just in it for the awards. The awards are nice gravy on top of everything else. But I'll give you an example because we actually announced this game, so I can talk about it now. So we've announced a game called Sweet Transit, which was announced just before Christmas, which is amazing. It's a train infrastructure building game where you lay down train tracks in steam train times, and communities and villages growing. So it's kind of a city builder, but you build cities by laying down train tracks and train infrastructure. And it's called Sweet Transit, and it's coming sometime this year. That's all I can say. Awesome. Anyway, the person making that is not a studio. It's one guy. And he's called Ernestas Norvezas. And he is a really nice guy. He was one of the lead artists on Factorio. Wow. So he's worked on a really successful game, and he wanted to do his own thing, and he learned programming. He's an artist, always dangerous, that Carl, artist that learned programming. What's the world coming to? And he's a really great guy, but he didn't even want to really start his own company. He just wanted to be him as a creative person making this game, and he didn't want to hire loads of people. So it actually worked out really well, because him as one person, that he obviously he has got some pedigree. He worked on an amazing hit game, Factoria, and he's got a load of talent, and he had an amazing demo of his game that he'd already got. But he did show it to us, and so he's not a studio, he's one person. So I suppose maybe he's the exception to the rule, Carl. Well,
I don't know. I think there's definitely a trend in games with game engines like Unity and Unreal becoming more just a lot easier to develop in. And I do think that there's a trend of more people wanting to create their own mechanics and stories themselves, and it's becoming more like the whole filmmaking trend. I feel that happened where people can make films on their own if they work hard enough and they're passionate enough about it. So I definitely think that's going to become more common, as people wanting to own the whole process entirely. But I definitely understand that from a publisher's perspective, is that you want to have a great game that is put forward from that is in your list of games that you've helped publish, and from your perspective, it doesn't really matter, because if that does end up becoming a studio and then they create a new game, that new game is going to be a completely new conversation from your perspective on if it's the right product market fit, if it lines up well. So
and again, like I said, with Team 17, we have a slightly different perspective, because we've got over 200 developers in house. So we can help people where we need to help people, and that's not just about porting, it's about development support. We've got an entire usability team, UX team, that have been helping Ernestas, for example, with Sweet Transit, and helping him things that he hadn't even thought of. How we can make the game better, or how we can make it more accessible for people. And as basically a solo developer, he can't do that on his own. So there are, that was another advantage of working with a publisher. And I just watched the trailer for Sweet Transit. It's really nice, and because I didn't know whether he was going to set up a company or not. He's not got a studio name. His name is the logo at the end of the trailer. It just says Ernestas Norvezas in a nice typeface, and that's it. He's a really cool guy.
Yeah, no, I definitely I think of Joseph Fares, the creator of It Takes Two, and like how his creative vision is you know, he puts that through his studio, and he kind of I think that is definitely a trend we're seeing with like one person owning the kind of creativity rather than having that split up amongst the different teams in a studio in different departments. That's definitely an interesting topic of conversation. But yeah, no, thank you so much for answering that, and just this whole call in general has been really good. I'm just running through my questions now. I don't think there's anything. I had
fine. Whatever. I've got more time if you want to carry on. Whatever.
Yeah, no, we'll start wrapping it up. I think if anyone listening or is watching this later on YouTube, if you do have any questions, then you know, like Simon makes himself very very active, and I'm sure he's got an email on his Twitter bio to to reach out to.
I'm not that crazy. I'm not that crazy.
No, but you can reach out to him or reach out to us at the NZGDA if you do have any questions or concerns, because we love learning about publishing and the best way forward, and looking at announcements like, you know, seeing things like what's happening with Sweet Transit and trends like that that are happening in the industry. So yeah, no, thank you so much for all the value that you shared. And yeah, there's going to be Simon's Twitter in the bio if you want to go follow him and check out his tips for pitching. So I'm going to throw it back over to Leanne, who will give a closing karakia before we leave. Also, I want to just quickly mention that next month we have another webinar about not publishing, but launching your games in Thailand. And if you go to nzgda.com/webinars, you can RSVP to that as we add more information in the next few weeks. So thanks everyone for listening in, and I'll throw it over to you, Leanne.
Yeah, this one, Simon, just for your benefit, is all of the message behind it is about people going forward and affirming everything that they've learned and talked about. So that's pretty useful and appropriate today, considering you had so many practical tips. So thank you for sharing them. Una hia ki te uru tapanui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nako, te tinana, te wairua I te ara takata, koira I rongo, whakairea ake ki runga, kia tina, hui e tākie. Thanks, Simon, and have a great day, everyone in NZ.